Hi, today we're going to talk about hive safety. One of the things that you should never do is walk up to a beehive just the way I am. We get away with this not because we know that much about bees, but because, at least in my own personal case, I sustained so many bee stings over the years that I have near total immunity to bee stings. So, believe it or not, a bee sting causes less problems to me than the standard mosquito bite. However, most of you will not have that luxury. And in that case, what we really emphasize is you should protect your face, particularly around your eyes. So that's why we generally wear the bee suits, and the bee suits almost always have some type of mesh or veil on them to protect your head and face. If you don't wear anything else, wear a bee veil. Now, if you get a bee in your veil, the appropriate reaction is to stop, slowly turn toward the sun, because the bee will go to the edge of the veil trying to get out. She'll try to get to the sun. Then you or someone else can reach up and pinch that bee off, and with luck, you won't get stung. What you don't want to do is grab your veil, rip it off, and go running pell-mell through the bee yard, flailing wildly. The bees will take that as an attack mode, and you in turn will receive their anger. For the most part, we use smoke to calm bees. And you don't flame them, but you just give them a little bit of smoke. And what that says to the bee is there may be a fire coming, and the appropriate response is not to fight it, but to go into the hive, get a full load of honey in your honey crop, so you basically take lunch with you in case you have to abandon the hive. The other thing the smoke does is it tends to mask the pheromone or the alarm pheromone that is emitted or released when a bee stings you. So if a bee stings you, she marks a spot so that the next bee will sting the same spot. Now, this is an evolution, a behavior that has come about because bees are normally attacked by things like bears and badgers and skunks. Typically, they bang things around, they're dark and they're furry. They have thick hides, and their stings are kind of hard to get to a vulnerable spot to drive them off. So they'll go through eyes and noses, and when one finds an entry point, she marks that spot for the next bee. If you notice here, these bees are not paying much attention to me at all as long as I'm not standing in front of the hive. If I stand here, watch what happens behind me. You see the bees starting to pile up? Now eventually some bee is going to decide that that's just too much, and she's going to try to nudge you out of the way by bumping into you. And if that doesn't work, then she may release her sting on you. Now keep in mind that a honeybee can only sting once. She's got a barbed stinger, and when she stings you, that stinger sticks in your flesh and it tears out of her, so she'll die. So generally they don't want to sting you unless they absolutely have to. So they'll generally try to scare you off. If you do get stung, don't reach down with your thumb and forefinger and squeeze that bulb at the end, because all you're doing then is driving the venom deeper into you. What you want to do is take your hive tool or a fingernail and scrape backwards and scrape that stinger out. That way you get it out without releasing any more venom than necessary. So, I've talked a little bit about the need to wear protective clothing. If you notice, it is generally light in color. It doesn't have to be white, but it shouldn't be dark. It should be a fairly hard surface material, not fuzzy, and it should be comfortable to wear, because the biggest problem from a safety standpoint may not be bee stings per se, but on hot days overheating in the bee suit. Keep in mind that it's difficult to drink water and other things while wearing a bee suit. So, as I said before, we use the smoke to calm bees down. We just use a little bit to knock at the door. And if we're going to open this hive and I release this ratchet strap and take this lid off, I'd add a little smoke to the top. Give them a few seconds before you open them, so they'll get the idea that maybe they got to get ready for a possible fire. They'll calm down, they'll come in, and you'll find that opening your hive is a pleasant experience rather than a miserable one. Now, I oftentimes have beekeepers say, my bees are mean. And if you ask them how they work their bees, you'll find out that they typically come home from a long day at work, chill with the family a bit, maybe play with the kids or pets, possibly watch the news. Eventually, just before dusk, they decide they're going to go out and they're going to work their hives. Wrong. Bad time of the day to do it. Because as the sun sets and the shadows get long, the bees come home for the day. But they're not happy about that. You know, they basically want to be out foraging, making honey. And if they've got to come home, the last thing they want to do is find somebody that's torn the house apart. So best time of day is when it's nice and warm and sunny, when the bees are busy bringing home nectar and pollen.